Welcome to the Brute Strength Podcast, bringing you worldwide experts from all areas of health and fitness. We cover training, nutrition, coaching, and mindset. Welcome your host, strength and conditioning coach, 2012 and 2013 CrossFit Games champ, Michael Cazayoux. Mind, body, brute.
Hey everyone, this is Mike Cazayoux, and you're listening to the Brute Strength Podcast. On this week's show, I've got a dear friend, Floyd McLendon Jr. Floyd is a former Navy SEAL, and he's currently involved in Texas politics. The way that I met Floyd is through SealFit, and we start the show out by me telling the story of how we met, and it's really funny because we met at SealFit, and he had a really powerful impact on me there, and he taught me. He said some things that that taught me a lot about leadership, but we never got a chance to really dive in and talk about it. Like, he just kind of mentioned some things in passing because it's a very high pressure event, SealFit is, and so we never got a chance to dive into it. And so over the years, I thought about this guy for like dozens of times, and I just wanted to know more about what he told me while I was there. And so we start to show off by talking about what he was trying to teach me. And it's a lesson on leadership that I've been mulling over for years. And so I think that'll be really interesting to you. We talk about how the process of him becoming a Navy SEAL changed him as a person. It's notorious for being one of the hardest crucible experiences, one of the most grueling experiences, like formal experiences that anyone can go through on the planet. And he talks about how that humbled him. And then we spend the majority of the show talking about what he calls the 7 principles for preparing for battle. These are simple yet fundamental principles for achieving any big thing in any area of your life. Floyd is one of those guys that really just embodies both the hard and the soft. He's a very soft-spoken, direct person, but he's at one point of time, he was one of the biggest warriors on the planet, and I really admire that. And I think anybody that embodies both of those traits at the same time, there's a ton to learn from. So I hope you enjoy this show as much as I did. Without further ado, Floyd McLendon Jr. Floyd, what's up, brother? Thank you so much for joining me.
Michael, how you doing? Thank you for having me, man. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely, man. So before we get started on this, I just want to give the listeners a little bit of a backstory of how we met. So many of you have heard me talk about my SealFit experiences, and most of you that have been following this show for a while will know that the first time I did SealFit, I quit 40 hours into this 50-hour experience. And if you want, go back and listen. I can't even remember the podcast that it was on. I'll link to it in the show notes. I'll find out what podcast I've talked about it on. Go and listen to that whole experience. But just know that my mind got in my own way. I got in my own way, and it led to me quitting a physical crucible for the first time in my life. And it was actually it was the best thing that possibly could have happened for me to get humbled and to learn the lessons that I did. Right. Fast forward to the next year. So the day after I quit, I signed up for it again. I dropped like $2,000 as a college student. This is how bad I wanted to complete it. I signed up the next day for like the following year. And I did it a week after we had won the CrossFit Games for the second time. And so I was in great shape. And so there was no excuse physically for why I shouldn't complete it this time. I was fully trained. I was in literally the best shape of my life. And there's no reason that I should quit. And in that second experience is where I met you. And the second go round, I was no longer just trying to survive in SealFit. I was trying to thrive, and I was trying to dominate every single evolution, as Mark Divine called it, as you guys called it. Every single small event within the larger event, I was trying to dominate and give everything that I had. And I think the only thing that I continued to think about after that event was some parting words that you gave me. And you came up to me at the very end and you said, Mike, I noticed that you're a really great natural leader. And you gave me a few examples that you saw that weekend of how you saw that I was a good leader.
Right.
But what stuck with me is what you said next. And you said, but you could be so much better if you didn't hold back. And that's where the conversation ended. And I feel like I talked to a therapist about it. I definitely talked to several friends about it. And at one point, I even emailed Mark Devine and I said, Coach Devine, what was that large black coach's name that was at the event? And he couldn't remember. Like he has so many coaches that go through. He
Right.
couldn't remember exactly who it was. And so I just thought I had lost you, man. I thought, and the reason I wanted to find you and reach out to you is because I wanted to know more of what was on your mind, like more of why you said what you said. And this will come full circle in a second and then we'll move on. I think, and I kind of want to use you as a sounding board here because I've given it so much thought over the years. Right. And I think what you meant was something like this. Like in my life, I've seen this show up in a lot of areas. I will be generous and I will give to others only to the extent that I feel like I have enough for myself. And what showed up in SealFit is me. Like I was one of, if not the most physically fit person there. I just competed at the CrossFit Games. So I should be able physically to really thrive in that environment. And I gave just enough to be supportive, but I wasn't as generous as a lot of people that were way less fit than me, right? And I think I think that's what you saw in me. I think you saw me kind of holding back and reserving a lot of energy just to take care of myself when a lot of other people were giving themselves up to the greater cause of the team. Is that at all accurate?
Oh, that's very accurate. You were, from a physical standpoint, you really didn't have much left to give. So I would have liked to have seen you focus more on exerting that extra energy towards helping your teammates, right, get to the next level and not worrying about only giving enough to where you feel, okay, this is comfortable. Mm-hmm. There was so much more, and us as humans, we tend to hold back, we tend to fear of like giving our all. But what you will find out is if you look at any of the times that you have given your all to anything, right, that's when you are the most satisfied, regardless of what the outcome is, because you know for a fact that there was nothing else you could have done. Right. And you and your teammates around you, what happens is you help them realize just, what they're capable of, compared to what they think that they're capable of. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So from a satisfaction standpoint, as well as what I started to learn there is we really have no idea what we're physically capable of or emotionally capable of. I thought I was reserving more energy so that I had more later. But what I realized over and over and over in that experience is that the only limit is our mind, right? Like we have so much more physically that we can give than we have any idea, but most of us never realize it because we never do something like SealFit or go through buds or, hike the Appalachian Trail or do some very extreme crucible like that.
Right. And I don't think we have to do extreme crucibles like that. I I think we don't give ourselves enough credit at times, because who hasn't gone through something difficult in their life, right? Whether it's personal, whether it's professional, whether it's in a relationship, whether it's you losing a family member, being in a bad car accident, getting physically injured. And how did you navigate through that? How did you overcome that? So, that can be a massive crucible in itself. Mm-hmm. And I think at times we just don't give ourselves enough credit and look at things like that and see like, man, I've gotten through this. And we don't, recall, how did I get through that? Like, what were some of the things that I persevered? What were some of the things, that I believed in myself that I can get through? And it's just getting people to realize how much stronger you really are compared to what they give themselves. Right. And that's what I was trying to do to you. I'm like, look, just let go. You have this great attribute, use it, to your greatest capacity, and things will, and your world will open up, mentally and also from a leadership standpoint.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the result of me doing that and kind of being reserved, just to put it in really concrete terms, is at times it led to my team that I was either leading or being a part of. It led to us not winning certain events, where if I gave everything that I had, including encouraging and supporting my teammates, we could have won some of those events. So sometimes that might look like, I don't know, a family getting through a grieving process successfully, or a business being successful in a product launch, giving myself up to what the team needs over what I need, I've realized is the way to be most successful in life, period.
Yes. And it opens up your ability to recognize what is needed as that leader. Right. So here it is. You had this controlled environment where it is where we apply stress, or you actually you apply stress on yourself. And now you have the ability to play with, this one aspect of a leadership, and quality that you have, and see if that works, or another aspect. And then you get to hone your skills to where, you go back to your business or you go back to your family, you automatically know, based off of the situation, what kind of leadership is needed, or what kind of fellowship is needed, just stepping back and being led by someone else. So don't deprive yourself of these great opportunities when you run across it. Right. Mm-hmm. So that, that was part of my inspiration that I was trying to, to give you.
I love it, man. Yeah, it's awesome. That's come full circle. That was 5 years ago. And then a mutual friend of ours, Trevor Moad, he had no idea that I knew Floyd. And he said, Mike, you live in Austin. My man Floyd just moved to town. You'll have to connect. And Floyd and I set up breakfast, still not knowing that we knew each other. And we show up at breakfast and I said, are you that guy?
Yeah.
Very cool, man. Yeah. So before we started, you told me that at some point in your life, earlier years, you were, and I'm using your words, you were an unapologetic, unempathetic asshole. Tell us about the process of becoming a SEAL and how that humbled you and kind of changed that side of you.
Growing up, I was athletically, I would say, what would you call athletically gifted, meaning, not putting a lot of time and energy into the skill side of, football, basketball, basically, whatever it is that I played. So those kind of things came easy to me. So I assumed, at an early age, and then also into my early 20s, that if people worked as much as I did, or, maybe, half as much as I did, that they would be able to perform at a high level, such as myself. Right. So I hadn't really gone through any tough crucibles, when it came to obtaining a goal.
Meaning you hadn't hit any real adversity.
Exactly. Right. When I was in school, high school, I went, honors classes, but it didn't take much for me to get good grades, so I really hadn't been tested. So I developed an attitude, of, well, if I can do it, it can easily be done by anybody else. And also too, I am a very anal type of person when it comes to structure and, organization. So it was either my way or, we couldn't be, we couldn't affiliate with each other, that kind of thing. So that's where the unapologetic, unempathetic asshole came to be. And it wasn't until I started training to become a Navy SEAL that started to chip away, because at the time I was training to position myself to be in the NBA by the age of 30. Right. So and my plan was, I was in the Navy. I was going to play all Navy basketball. Then I was going to get accepted onto the All Armed Forces team. Then I was going to play overseas, get exposure there, play for them, and then get drafted into the NBA by 30. At that time that I decided to become a Navy SEAL, I had just cracked the door of the opportunity to play for All Armed Forces the next year.
So you were on the way of realizing your dream.
I was on the way, right? I was on the way. But when that opportunity came, I had already shifted to wanting to become a Navy SEAL, so I turned it down. And my first workout, Michael, I kid you not, it was 3 sets of 15 push-ups, 20 sit-ups, and 3 pull-ups. And right after that, I had to do a 2-mile run. It took me about 30 minutes to just do the calisthenics part.
Oh, wow.
Now, mind you, I think I'm in shape. Like, I've been playing basketball, I lift weights, I could run a mile in under 6 minutes, so I'm thinking I'm in shape. That workout started my path to being humbled.
That was the moment right there, huh?
That's when it started. Wow. And I didn't know how to swim. So I had to learn how to swim. So now here it is. I'm in a completely foreign element. I know nothing about. I'm researching. I think this is going to be my next profession, and I'm at the very bottom, and I'm struggling. And each day was, 100% effort mentally and physically. And as I started to go through that crucible, and it humbled me, and it made me realize my shit is not, my shit don't stink. My shit do stink.
Right.
And I need a ton of work to put into becoming, what I'm striving for. So I started to develop, understanding and empathy for, and realizing that individuals are putting forth a great effort, when it comes to things. I just need to recognize that and give them the respect that's due. Right. And we're totally different people. So, and I can't expect you, to perform at a level that I perform at, based off of our differences. Right. Man, it was probably one of the greatest lessons that I've learned. And I'm still learning it. I'm still, learning it as I go from day to day. But I love it, because it keeps me grounded.
And then you went on to have a long career as a Navy SEAL. What was that process like? I think at some point you even went from, I don't know what you call it, even like an operator to leader, or I think you had a couple different leadership roles as well along the way.
Right. So you are operator first, and then as you progress through the ranks, you'll become, like in a platoon, first you'll become like a fire team leader. So it'll be you and 3 other guys who you're responsible for, and then you'll become a squad leader. So it's like 8 guys that you're responsible for, and you'll become a leading petty officer. So now you're responsible for the whole platoon, or you'll become a chief petty officer, which you are the highest ranking enlisted guy for that platoon, and you and the officer in charge are making the decisions best for that platoon. So you go through that process, but also too, regardless of where you're at as a Navy SEAL, you're always a leader. You just learn how to step up and lead when it's needed, or how to step back and follow when a leader is present. Right. And then you're also working with a high caliber individual based off of the process of training, that you have to bring your A game, right? Because if you don't, you fall to the wayside, or you don't get selected, or you don't build the relationships and camaraderie that you need in order to perform at a high level and do what you need to do.
Can you talk a little bit more about that concept of learning to follow, ready to lead, ready to follow? You were a really talented, driven person yourself. And so I would assume you're kind of like me, like naturally a leader. You were always a leader in whatever area you were in. What was it like learning to follow? And can you talk a little bit more about that concept?
Absolutely. So going through BUD/S, actual BUD/S, the training itself, there were days I didn't know if I was going to make it through. Like, honestly, I would show up and be like, I don't know if I'm going to make it through today. However, based off of my effort that got me here, I'm going to trust it. Right. And we'll see what happens. And, I was blessed. I did make it through. But during that process, you were called upon to lead, certain instances where your instructor would single you out and have you lead, or you will start to develop a knack for seeing where you need to step into that role to lead, right? But the hardest part for us, we're considered alpha males, we like to lead. The hardest part for us is understanding when to step back and allow whoever is the most specialized or the most competent in that particular area, they're the ones to lead. So for example, for me as a new guy in a platoon, I don't know anything about real combat because I had never been downrange at that particular time. I would go to, let's say I go to a particular school. So let's say demolition school, right? So now I'm a breacher. And if I'm a new guy, as soon as I finish that breacher school, as soon as I get back to my platoon, I'm the expert. And now I have to lead men who've been to combat, and I have to teach them concepts that they expect me to be the expert on, right? But then they also teach me, my veteran brothers also teach me, yep, we got it. Now step back down and, new guy, and follow us. Right. So it's a process. Some of it is self-realization, and some of it is, your brothers helping you, understand, hey, time for you to follow. Right. Or it's time for you to lead.
Right. It just takes the ego out of it completely.
It does. And sometimes that's hard for us.
Sure.
Right. Which who wouldn't be you won the CrossFit Games. Now you're at SealFit. What are you thinking? Right? I got this. I was here before. Didn't happen. Now I won the CrossFit Games. I know I'm ready. And then you get there and you're listening to somebody like me telling you, you got more.
Right.
You got more. Right. So that's the process. But for us, it's the process the whole time being a Navy SEAL. There's always someone before you who's looking for you to lead, and there's always someone ahead of you who's humbling you and telling you, hey, there's more that you need to learn, right? And that's what makes us so good.
A couple of things. I've done a couple of things in the past few years that have been really helpful for me on this end, because I've been so competitive in my life, and I'm always scanning for like who's the best in the room at what and who's the best overall. And it's not something I'm proud of at all, but my mind just goes there immediately. And I think a lot of people can relate to this. And at times, especially in business, it'll lead me to compare myself to others, either that other competitors, other businesses, as well as people on my team. Basically, it goes something like this. I want to be the best at everything, right? I want to be the best overall, which is really not a useful mind game to play at all, because why does it matter? Why does it really matter who's the best, right? As you were saying, there's some people that are better at certain things, and one of the things that I've learned is just to feel comfortable enough in my own skin, knowing that I have some skills that others don't, and some others have skills that I don't have. And the faster that I can follow people with skills I don't have and let them lead in those ways, the faster that we can move forward as a team. Now, the other thing that I've been working on, and this one I think is a constant challenge, like just something I continue to work through, is that piece of why does it matter who's the best, right? If we're working towards a common goal, then let's just work towards a common goal. There doesn't need to be this comparison about who's better and who's worse.
That's a question.
No, I'm just talking out loud. Talking out loud. That's what it's been like for me.
I think it's like that for a lot of people. And I believe that stems from the way that our society is growing, right? Social media
Exactly.
is showing all the good of what everybody's doing, right? Facebook, LinkedIn, all you see is the good. Like rarely will you see somebody, it's the best, and we fall into that trap of I need to be the best and I need to trump that, right? But how many people are Michael? How many people are Floyd, right? It's only one. So what is Floyd best at? What were you put on this earth to do? What is your gift, right? It's finding that gift, right? I believe I know what my gift is, so that's what I'm going to focus on. Now, my gift, I believe, is to be in a position to share my story, to share my experience, and also use it to be a leader for our country, right? That's what I believe my gift is. But there are other people out there who believe that that's their gift as well. So what makes me different from them? Well, I'm Floyd. Right? You're Michael. So we'll tell the same story, but based off of our unique growth, we can only tell it our way. Right? So we can only use that gift, that tool, in one unique way. No one else will be able to use it like you. It's realizing that it's not about comparing myself to Michael. It's about comparing myself to Floyd the day before.
Exactly.
Right? That's exactly what, like, am I better than I was yesterday? And if the answer is no, I wasted a day. Right? And it's not, am I better in all categories? Because you say, I have to be better and I have to be overall the best, right? What category am I going to work on today? Right? Is it going to be communications? All right. So I'm going to work on communicating better with my wife, with my kids, right? With my coworkers. And then at the end of the day, did I do that? Okay. I'm a better man. Tomorrow, I'm going to work on my organization, right? And okay, at the end of the day, am I more organized than I was yesterday? Yes, right? And over time, your level is going to improve in all of those categories. And then overall, you will become a better person, or you become the best, but it'll be the best of Michael. It'll be the best of Floyd. Right. And it's accepting it and understanding that you are very unique. And even when you do compare yourself to someone else, you're not going to measure up, because you're completely different people.
Right. Carl Jung said something to the effect that the greatest gift one can get in life is being themselves. So I think a better question to ask than who's the best or what am I the best at is, am I being completely myself? And where in life am I being inauthentic? And to continue going deeper and deeper and deeper into that question, like where am I still being something just because somebody or society thinks I should be that way, right? Where am I not fully being myself? And the more that we can really bring our actual selves to light and just be that person more often, I think that is what true success is. Something like that.
Self-awareness, right? Self-analysis, right? Self-improvement. And you're absolutely right. It's difficult for us as humans to look internally. I personally believe most of our problems lies within us, right? So if we're going through an issue or we have a problem, the answer is I need to change my perspective of that particular problem. And once my perspective changes, then I don't allow it to affect me like it used to, right? So you can only control your actions, your words. That's it. You can't control anything else. Everything else is external and it comes at you. What you do with it will determine your outcome, right? So what's your perspective? How are you speaking, not only to outside people, but how are you speaking most importantly to yourself, right? What are you saying to yourself?
Right.
And then also, what are you doing? Not only, to other people, but what are you doing to yourself? Are you getting up in the morning? Are you reading your daily devotion? Are you praying? Are you training? Are you eating right? Things like that totally affects you and only you. That will in turn affect your relationship with everything else outside of you. So, but it's difficult for us to do that because I think it's easy to point a finger, to be like, no, Michael, that's your fault. I didn't, as opposed to, from my perspective, maybe I could have spoken to Michael differently, or maybe I have a little bit of empathy because Michael may be going through some things that I don't even know about, right? Because if people are in a bad place and they come at you in a bad way, most of the time it's because of the place that they're in, not the place that they try and put you in. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, it has less to do with you than it does what's going on in their life.
Exactly. Right. So my perspective is she's having a bad day, right? This has nothing to do with me. And maybe it do a little bit, but not to that extent. So I'm going to figure out as a leader, how do I navigate to where I don't kill that relationship, right? Or how do I navigate to help that individual, even though they lashed out at me, right? And we're more available to our spouses, to our kids, right, to our family to do that. But we're not more available to our coworkers. We're not more available to strangers, to our neighbors, to do that.
Right.
And we need to balance that out.
Couldn't agree more, man. So I want to talk for 10, 15 minutes about your 7 principles for preparing for battle. Before we get into them, where did this come from? How did you start to develop this?
So our mutual friend, Trevor Moab, he called me up about a year and a half ago because he knew I was about to retire, and we'd known each other since 2010, and he knew that I was a speaker for the Naval Special Warfare community, and I'd done it for, since 2010. I've been traveling nationwide, speaking to colleges, high schools, community centers about the diversity that Naval Special Warfare had to offer. So he called me up and he said, "Hey, man, I want you to come and talk to University of Georgia's conditioning, like the coaches. Come talk to them. They're strength and conditioning coaches." I'm like, "All right, what do you want me to talk about?" He's like, "I don't know, make something up." So I was like, "Okay." So I made something up, right? And it was, basically, it was about how I live my life, my principles, the things that I believe and how to influence people. So afterwards, he said, "You know what? That's pretty good." He said, "I'm going to contact you to come speak to other people in the future." Mm-hmm. So he contacted me to come speak to Florida State later on in the year. And he said, "I need you to design a talk about battle, about preparing for battle." So I was like, "Okay, I could do that." So I got the writing and I came up with these 7 principles preparing for battle. And battle is a loose term. It's what's your goal, right? What are you trying to obtain personally, professionally? So for the Florida State University football team, it was to be successful that season, right? To win a championship. For a mom, it may just be to be a successful mother, to be a successful wife, that kind of thing. Or from a corporate point of view, how do I be a good manager? How do I be a good CEO? That kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And it's all these principles is nothing new. It's what we use every day. It's just that I share how I've used these 7 principles, and I build a bridge to connect you and I. Because people look at Navy SEALs as, wow, like they're so highly motivated. They're so highly efficient. They're so physically fit.
They're just different.
They're just different. And part of my message with the 7 principles preparing for battle is we aren't different. We just apply these principles maybe at a higher level than you when it comes to obtaining our goals. And we immerse ourselves in an environment that is conducive to using these principles at a high level consistently, day in and day out, to where it becomes second nature. And now our normal performance is way higher than anyone else's. Right? So it's about exposure to these critical principles and using them every day in high level situations. That's all it is. And I build the bridge and tell you, number 1, full commitment. What does that mean to you? To me, I believe in myself and I believe in the higher power. I believe in God, right? If I believe in those 2 things, and I trust in those 2 things, then I'm going to fully commit myself to my battle, right? For me, it was becoming a Navy SEAL. But then when I became a Navy SEAL, it was being the best operator or team guy that I could be so that my warrior brothers and sisters would be proud, to serve with me, and there would be no question in their mind when it was time for us to go to battle, right? So that was my battle. I also have a battle of being a really good husband, right? Being a really good father. So it starts there. And then the second piece is sacrifice, sharing, what is sacrifice? What's your definition of sacrifice? Not my definition, but what's your definition? Doing the things that I need to do, foregoing any other anything that is against that. That's sacrifice to me, right? But what is it to you? What does that look like, right? Sacrifice is me training 4 hours a day, getting up in the morning, 2 hours before I go to work, 2 to 3 hours after I get off of work. But what am I sacrificing? One, I'm sacrificing time with my family. 2, I'm sacrificing hanging out with the boys, playing basketball like I used to, but I'm okay with that, right? That's my sacrifice. So then, Michael, what's your sacrifice? What does that look like, right? And then it's connecting us, it's building the bridge. And then it's saying, yes, you know what? I've sacrificed just like that before. So it's getting people to think that I am highly capable of great things, right? And how do I know that? Well, I just finished talking to a Navy SEAL, and we use the same principles, and we have examples of how we use the same principles. So it's walking away with a greater sense of self.
So let me make sure I'm following. So the first one, full commitment, it's getting very clear about what you're actually working towards, right? And trusting enough in yourself. And if you believe in something greater, believe in that, believing in yourself enough to know that you're going to follow through, right? You're going to do what you're saying you're going to do. You're going to have integrity with yourself in this endeavor. And then the second one is like completely connected to the first one, which is defining all of the little things that you have to do along the way, and what you're saying yes to and what you're saying no to by committing to this endeavor.
By sacrificing, right? You are, and then the third one is what people miss a lot. I call it house in order, right? You got to have your house in order, meaning, are your finances in order, right? Are you is your nutrition in order? Are you eating like you're supposed to? How's the relationship with your kids? How's the relationship with your brothers and sisters, your mom and dad? How's the relationship with your wife or your husband, right? Is that in order? Or are you fighting in those different areas? And if you are, then that's going to take away from you being able to be fully committed. And that's going to take away from you being able to sacrifice and do the right things, because your mind is not where it needs to be when it needs to be.
Right. So if the example is in your career, then all of those other things have to be in order. If it's if your endeavor is to be the best husband you can be, then all of the other things have to be in order, including your career. Correct?
Absolutely. It's your relationships, right? It's also your role responsibilities, right? What did I agree with my wife about in being a husband, right? I take care of the outside. I take care of the vehicles. I take out the trash. It doesn't have to be huge, but it's like, am I holding my end of the bargain? Am I taking out the trash every night? Am I washing the cars every week? Am I making sure the grass is cut and the maintenance around the house is taken care of, right? That's in order, right? So now I can focus on, what I'm striving for, whatever my battle is, right? And then number 4 is master the basics. So I don't believe there is an advanced anything. Advanced training or advanced leadership, or I don't believe there's an advanced anything. What I believe is that those who are at a higher level have mastered the basics and make it look so complicated, right, that we want to label it as advanced. Right? But no, they're doing the basics. It's just that they've become highly efficient and highly effective in using the basics, right? It's a crawl, walk, run process. So if you master those basics, the skill sets within, whether it be in, at work, what's the basics for you at work, right? Answering emails. Okay, well, how do you get really good at answering your emails? Well, there's a system, right? I come in the morning, I check to make sure that I don't have to put out any fires. And then from there, I put that aside and I prioritize my day as far as what do I need to get done for my boss immediately. And then after lunch, I'll go back to my emails to scrub them, right? Like that's my mastering the basics, as opposed to getting there, checking my email, and then doing another task, checking my email, doing another task, right? To me, that's not mastering the basics, right? Mastering the basics is when I deadlift, are my feet set? Is my back straight? Am I gripping the bar like really hard? Am I pushing through the floor when I drive the weight up? Is my head neutral? Those kind of things. Is my whole body working, working like a piston as opposed to parts being loose? I'm not worried about the weight. I'm worried about how the weight moves, right? If the weight is moving crisp and clean, then the next time around, I'm able to move the weight up. And then before you know it, I'm deadlifting a weight that people would consider to be really heavy. Right. And I mastered the basics, right? That's what the Olympians do. That's what the high professionals do.
Yeah, it's funny how for some reason we want to learn the basics and then just move on and never mess with them again, right? We want to get to that quote unquote advanced stuff as quickly as possible. So your example of work habits is so solid, and I think anybody that works online or remotely can really understand this, because like for myself, for instance, when I started an online company, I had complete freedom of time and place. I had no structure that I had to adhere to whatsoever. And learning and mastering the basics of prioritization and time management, they did absolute wonders for my personal life and my professional life. Things like having a list for each day of what I need to accomplish, creating a schedule for myself, putting my phone on silent when I'm doing certain activities that I need to focus, doing one activity at a time. The simplest things ever that, if done properly and consistently, lead to enormous progress over time, where a lot of us are focusing on like, what's the new productivity hack or app that we can use on our phone, or piece of software that we can download for project management, rather than just taking responsibility of ourselves and taking ownership of those basic principles. I love that.
Yeah. And that falls right into number 5, consistency, right? It's every day for an extended period of time, right? You work on whatever skill set that you're trying to improve on every day for an extended period of time, right? Every day for an extended period of time. When I didn't know how to swim, I swam every day, pretty much 15 minutes the first week, 20 minutes the second week, 30 minutes the third week, right? All the way up into 75 minutes of continuous swim. And then I put fins on, and then I started to do swim workouts where you break it down into sets. But I had to build that level of consistency. I had to get comfortable first, right? So when I talk about me not knowing how to swim, I tell people I taught myself how to be comfortable in the water before I learned how to swim. Meaning for 3 months, I put myself in a foreign element 6 to 7 times a week. And I let the water go up my nose, in my ear, burn my eyes, choke, swallow the whole pool. 3 months of all of that. And then once I got comfortable enough to understand, okay, I'm not going to die, right? Then I was like, you know what? Let me work on this particular kick. Let me work on this particular stroke. Okay, now I'm ready to take a class to where I can listen to the instructor and focus on what they're teaching me, as opposed to all the, 3 months ago, right? That's consistency. So you just have to stick with it day in and day out, right? And then number 6, attention to detail, right? Attention to detail has been easy for me all my life. I've always been a detail-oriented guy.
Well, please teach me about it, because I am not great at it.
So it's focusing on the small nuances. That's all it is. You need to be very clear and very deliberate in your actions, and that's it. And it needs to. So, for example, when you tie your shoe, do you tie your shoe the same way every time? Right? Are your laces laced up the same way? Are you tying your shoe every time? When you put your socks and shoes on, attention to detail, right? Am I doing my left every time? Am I right every time? Do I put my pants on before my socks, right? That kind of thing. As an operator, the first thing that goes on is pants. Second thing, socks and boots, right? Because I may have to move really quick, right? So my attention to detail is, but then it's like, okay, what's the fastest way to put on my pants and socks? Right, left, right, left, right, left, right. Attention to detail. When I come home, I walk through my door, my keys go up on the hook right next to the door, right? My wallet goes right next to my phone where I plug my phones in the kitchen. I go hang up my jacket. My jacket is where my motorcycle closet is at. I put my helmet in the same exact place. I put my motorcycle gloves in the same exact place. I put my boots in the same exact place. This is my attention to detail. Your brain wants to work. Let me go back. Your brain doesn't want to work.
Right, exactly. Yeah, it wants to be automatic.
It wants to be automatic. So how do you make it go automatic? Consistency and attention to detail, right? In my sleep, if I get up, there's an emergency, I automatically know where my keys are, my shoes, I put my pants, shirts, like all that stuff in the same place. I don't have to think about where it's at. It's automatic. Basically,
that's like a recipe for creating the habits that you want to have in your life. Creating automatic behavior. Put attention to detail and be very attentive on what you want, how you want to behave. And over time, it just becomes an impulse, like an automatic behavior.
It's impulses, but I'm a little anal about it. My wife, she gets on me all the time. She's like, really? Before I leave the house, no dishes in the sink. Like pretty much when we leave the house all the time, I look at it as if I never return to this house and Michael comes to my house for the first, right? Michael comes to my house for the first time. He steps in. He'll have the mentality like, man, this is I can live here, as opposed to, you walk in and Michael's like, holy man, this is a dump, right? I don't think of, I'll be back in 5 minutes. I think of it as I want to leave the house. And when I come home, I don't want to do any work. Right. So my attention to detail is kitchen is clean, trash is out, beds are made, right? Shoes are put in the proper place, those kind of things. Jackets are hung up, right? Dirty clothes are in the dirty clothes, those kind of things. And it doesn't have to be that way. But like, what's your attention to detail? You tell me, what's your definition? I'm sharing with you what I do, right? It works for me. My wife, not so much.
And then learn to work together.
Yeah. And then the seventh one is exclusivity, right? Meaning I'm going to immerse myself in an environment and with the people that's going to help me obtain my battle. Anybody else, I don't associate with them. Now, this can be permanent or it can be temporary, right? Most of the time it's temporary. As a Navy SEAL, I had to put my friends and some of my family on the shelf because initially they didn't agree and didn't give me positive inspiration on me obtaining my goal, right? So that was not helpful. So I just had to put them on the shelf temporarily until I became a Navy SEAL, and then I integrated them back into my life, and then they started to understand how I had transformed into a completely different person, right? Because people see you for who you have been, not for who you want to be.
Right.
right? So you have to teach them, or they just have to see, you know, that slow transition of you becoming the person you want to be. And then once they realize that, you know, you can bring them back into the fold, and they don't know how to communicate with you as that different person, right? It's not a bad thing. It's just understanding, hey, I can't mess with you right now because you don't help my battle. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to limit my communication with you. And then, you know, either you start to understand that, okay, got it, I know what he needs, or I obtain it and then I say, hey, okay, let's reconvene. And then they look at you as a completely different way. Mm-hmm. Right. And it's the same now. People look at me, my people close to me, they're like, are you crazy? You want to do what? Right? You want to run for political office? Like, why would you want to do that? You know, and I'm like, well, I want to continue to serve. Right. And I believe that this is my best way to continue to serve. Right. Like, it's not over. I'm young, and we need individuals like myself to bring the military leadership perspective of the world and implement that into our decision making when it comes to our policies and how we make America, you know, for the future. You know, so that's my drive. That's my next battle.
Right.
Yeah.
So when you say exclusivity, I hear kind of it's another way of saying choosing the essential items and activities and people in your life, like consciously choosing the ones that will help you reach your goal or line up with what you really value in life. And right now, it's if any activity or person doesn't line up with you reaching your vision of political office and serving the country, then right now they don't have a place in your life, right?
Absolutely. And I'm unapologetic about that.
Right.
I'm unempathetic, you know, but I'm not an asshole about it. Like, I understand the process, and I will communicate that with those individuals. But for the most part, we all do that naturally. Mm-hmm. Michael, I'm sure there's a goal that you have put in front of you, and you just naturally gravitated toward the people, the environment, the things that pushed you that way. And you naturally let go of some things that wasn't conducive. Right. So it's nothing new. What I'm saying about the 7 principles is now you are consciously thinking about these principles, and you are applying them consciously, not subconsciously. Like, you're sitting down and you're saying, okay, full commitment. What does that mean? That means I need to sacrifice. That means I need my house in order. That means I need to master the basics. I need to be consistent. I need to have attention to detail, and I need to cut out all the superfluous things that does not help me obtain that battle. That's all it is, right? And you've done it before, but it's consciously understanding that and using that prior experience mm-hmm. to help you with this present experience.
Yeah, as you said earlier, it's consciously creating the environment that is conducive to you becoming the highest version of yourself, something like that.
Yeah.
In my life, I've either grown apart from people naturally because I'm going in a different direction than them. Not that mine is any better, it's just different, and the person that they are doesn't line up with where I'm going. And sometimes it's been a very direct conversation, like, hey man, I love you, or I care about you, but we have to part ways. And it's never a real happy conversation. No, on either side, right? It's uncomfortable to bring up, and it's uncomfortable to hear, but both people are better off because now I can go and be the best version of myself, and then that person isn't in a relationship with a friend that only halfway wants to be their friend, right?
Yes.
And then they can probably learn from that experience and grow as well.
And who takes rejection well at that moment of rejection? Mm-hmm. No one. right? So you're going to get a negative response probably most of the time. But it's just sticking to your decision, and over time, whoever you had to cut out, and if you were given the opportunity to communicate that to them, they will respect you, right? And they will understand later on. It may be a day, it may be a week, it may be a month, but eventually they're going to look at it and be like, you know what, I understand, and I really appreciate Michael, having that conversation with me, right? But at that particular time, they're going to be upset.
Right.
Yeah. But that's okay.
So when you do your talks, do you recommend that listeners write this down and explore these principles for themselves? How can listeners really make use of the 7 principles that you just laid out?
My wife is laughing. That depends on the audience, right? So 7 principles preparing for battle. I've talked to colleges. I've talked to professional teams, Major League Baseball, NFL, NBA, and I've also talked to corporate entities. Based off of what I'm feeling from the audience will determine like how I present the 7 principles preparing for battle. If they want to take it down, which most people who are serious do, then good on them. But it's not like something I recommend in the beginning, right? Because what I do is I use that as we go through the talk, because it's not I don't get on my soapbox and the 7 principles preparing for battle by, Navy SEAL. Number 1 is this, right? Number 2. No, it's a conversation, right? Like we're talking with each other. My definition of full commitment, my example is this. Would anyone like to share? Michael, what about you? And then we create dialogue and we go back and forth. And as we go through the process of sharing, right? Because my subconscious message is we're more connected than the world is showing us, right? So I want you to walk away feeling like you and I we're the same when it comes to using these principles. Like we have the same idea, the same methodology. We also from a practical standpoint, we apply it the same. So I want us to walk away feeling like we're more connected. I want that group to walk away feeling like they're more connected, so they could obtain their goal as a team or as a corporate entity, right? So if you take notes, that's fine. If you don't take notes, that's okay. Because at the end, when it's all said and done, as long as Michael walks away with 1 of the 7 principles and his teammate walks away with another, and his coworker walks away with another, as you work together or as you play together, those principles will come out and you will share and work together, and the 7 principles will connect, eventually. Right? So that's how I look at, I don't keep people on, all right, write this down, right? Some may already know it. You already know full commitment, sacrifice, house in order, master the. You already know this stuff. So why would I demand you to write it down or keep it, right? I just want us to connect to where I am a highly efficient, highly capable individual. And I was fortunate enough to work in an environment and organization that allowed me to do that, at such a high capacity. I want to connect with you and say, hey, you can do the same thing. And let me share with you how I did it. And I want us to walk away, feeling like, you know what? I know Michael a lot better than what I did before. He's human, just like me. And, he's fallible, just like me. He's failed, just like me. But he's successful. And I can be successful, too.
Right.
Yeah.
if I may, I would recommend anybody listening to this, just because you don't get the opportunity to talk to and have this conversation that Floyd is talking about. You don't have the opportunity to really think about what these principles mean to you and have a conversation with him about it. Take some time and either go through the 7 ones in your own mind, or maybe you talk about it with a friend or a coworker or your spouse or partner. Either have a conversation about it or write about it and really explore what these things mean to you. I think that's the way that you're going to get the most benefit out of it. If you really ask these questions of yourself, as if you were in the room with Floyd.
Yes.
So I appreciate you sharing those with us, man. You told me a funny story about, well, you started to say it and said we would just talk about it on the show, about swimming the English Channel recently. It was part of a charity event. What's the story there?
Epic Charity Challenge 2018 was in honor of the soldiers of D-Day, right? We went to Normandy and we set up a 6.1 mile swim in the English Channel, followed by a 24.3 mile ruck run from Omaha Beach to the city of St. Lo. We took the exact same route that our brothers took during that day, and in honor of them. So this was a very humbling experience for me. One, just because of being on the exact same ground that they walked on, and those that lost their lives that day, and following on that day, and let's not forget, today 9/11 as well. What happened to us 17 years ago. So it was really surreal just to walk that beach, just to be at the American cemetery. Life-changing. The swim was absolutely hilarious because swimming in the English Channel is based off of the weather, right? Most people who swim in the English Channel wait for the proper weather before they swim it, right? Well, the day that we had to swim the English Channel, it was very cloudy. It was 8 to 10 foot seas. It was 30 knot winds, and the current was 5 knots. So the French Coast Guard, they were like, hey, look, we don't want to take you guys out because it's way too bad. We convinced them. It was about 23 of us. They was going to drop us 6 miles off the coast, and we would swim. We would swim into Omaha Beach, right? So sure enough, as we're going out, the seas are very, very choppy, right? And some of us are starting to get seasick, and most of us did not prepare for the seasickness, me being one of them.
So on the way out, you haven't even started the swim yet.
Haven't even started the swim yet, right? We're headed out to our 6 mile marker. So right before we get dropped in, I started to get really seasick, like I'm throwing up in the boat. So finally we get to our marker, they drop us in, and as we're swimming, I'm still throwing up. So I'm swimming and throwing up. And I'm finding this to be hilarious because I should know better. I should have prepared, but I didn't. I prepared as far as swimming the distance and being, but I forgot the logistical part, right? The attention to detail. The weather may be messed up. Maybe I should take Dramamine with me, right? Completely forgot that logistical part. So I say about 2 miles into the swim, Coast Guard started to pull us back into the boat because we were way off course. So the way that the current was taking us, we would have completely missed Omaha Beach. So they pull everybody back in. And what was funny was some of us were swimming in circles because we had 3 boats. We had 3 Coast Guard boats, and we kept getting the lead boat confused. So you'll see one boat, right, and people will swim to it, And then because of the seas, they'll lose the visibility, and then as soon as they come up on top of the crest, they'll see the boat, which they think it's the one that they was just looking at, right. And then they'll swim toward that boat. And it was hilarious because the Coast Guard was pulling some guys in. It was like, yeah, we saw you. You were swimming in circles. Right. So that made it funny. But as I get pulled into the boat, I lose it. Like, I get so sick. I mean, I'm just throwing up consistently. And by this time, my system is empty and all it is just dry heaving. So the doctor on board, thank goodness she was on my boat that I got pulled in. She gave me Dramamine. She gave me 2. So now what we're going to do is we're going to swim close. Now they're going to take us close to the shore, drop us off in the water to swim the rest of the distance. So I'm still sick. So she comes, she gives me 1 more. So now I'm 3 Dramamine in, right? I'm still sick. So she gives me 2 more. So now I'm 5 Dramamine in. There's nothing in my system. We get to about 1,000 yards off the coast. And they say, all right, we're going to drop you in. But there's a caveat. We can't support you because it's the tide is too low. So we can't afford our boats to hit ground. So I had to make a snap decision, right? So here it is. There's nothing in my system. I'm 5 Dramamine in. There's no telling how far the distance is going to be in order to get to shore. So do I get back in the water? Right? So now I'm thinking from a safety perspective, not necessarily for me, but my swim buddy, because if I go tits up, then they have to save me. And now we have no support boats to support us. So I made the decision. I was like, no, I'm not getting back in. I was like, so I rowed the boat in. So I suffered for 2 more hours and rowed the boat in through the seas and sick. And most of the guys, they jumped back in and they made it to shore, and they did a ceremony, which was something that I wish I could have been to. But it was a very humbling and humorous experience for me, because here it is, this big bad Navy SEAL,
right?
Who got seasick not even before he started to swim and didn't finish the swim, right? So it was just a very humbling experience. Like it brought me back to, to ground level. If I was above ground level, it just brought me back to say, even though when you prepare, sometimes things just don't work out the way you think they're going to work out. And then also too, hey, you forgot this attention to detail here. You forgot to calculate the elements. And what do you do if the elements are bad? Those kind of things. So I wrote about it on my Facebook page, and it was a great time. We had individuals from all over the world, Germany, of course, the United States. We had, from France, we had England. A great group of individuals. It was a life-changing experience. Yeah. Wow. I just thought it was hilarious. Here it is, Navy SEAL couldn't finish his 6 months because he's seasick.
Right.
And as soon as I got back on shore, boom, I was fine. Right.
Yep.
So, yeah.
Nice to be knocked back down to earth every now and then.
Absolutely. I actually cherish those moments more now than I used to when I was younger. But it was a very, very humbling, and I'll never forget it. Well, neither would anybody else.
Oh, that's awesome, man. And it's cool that you can look at it like that and not take it as a big hit to your ego, which I'm sure there might have been some temptations to let it go that way.
Absolutely. I think everyone's like that, but it's just, understanding that you're human and you're fallible, and from day to day, you could lose, no matter what it is. You control your actions, and you control your actions. What I forgot, your actions, your thoughts, and your voice, right? And all I could control at that time was putting the factors together and not putting my swim buddies in danger, right? Not necessarily me. Like, I think I could have possibly did it. I don't know. We'll never know. Mm-hmm. But the fact is, I didn't want to risk finding out at the hands of someone else trying to save me, and we don't have boat support. And, it's just it was just it would have been a bad look.
Right. Well, it sounds like you were humble enough to make that decision already. And then it was even further humbling that you couldn't complete it. But you were humble enough to make that decision, which I think says so much about you.
Well, that's part of the training that we go through, is learning your limitations. Mm-hmm. I can't tell you how many times in training, I blacked out underwater 3 times in training. Right. I would have lost my life during a training evolution had it not been for a buddy of mine like grabbing me before I descended to the bottom, because I had on all my gear. So that's like 4 times. Right. So like, you learn your limitations through your training. And having gone through those type of experiences, having taken myself mentally and physically to that point, I'm able to realize now, okay, let me back off. Let me be sensible about this, because it's not life or death. I'm no longer in a life or death situation. And the mindset is completely different, if I was, right? But the reality is, we would have never dropped operators in that water. Right. For those conditions, right? Unless, we were on the verge of World War III or something. But then also too, it humbled me, because here it is, my brothers who lost their lives, to take this area, to take this beach, like they had to traverse like that, those kind of conditions. Mm-hmm. And some of them didn't even know how to swim, and their gear was so much heavier than mine. But they did it, so it put me in a place to where I'm on the shoulder of giants, right? And I still have to work for others for me to gain the respect for others to sit on my shoulders. Mm-hmm. Right. So it motivates me even more to continue to serve and do great things for our country. Yeah.
So you go from this unapologetic, unempathetic asshole to someone that's, positioning himself to make a difference on a much greater scale. What is this next? What is your vision of this next chapter look like for you?
Next chapter is to become a leader politically, either legislative or the executive branch. And right now I'm looking at Congress, positioning myself to run for 2020, somewhere in the state of Texas. So we're going to see how things shape up after the elections this year. But, that's the plan. I've been, me and my team have been preparing for this for the past year and a half. And, I think, we're on a good, we have a good plan. I think we're on a good path. And, I think that, I'll be a good leader for our people. I just have to convince, people like you, right, to give me the opportunity to do so. And doing things like this, being on your podcast, I'm very appreciative, because it allows your listeners, to see a part of me, and, to understand that we need connection between one another. And we also need our leaders, to be, someone that they can relate to.
Right.
Right.
So something like focus more on what we have in common than the differences.
Absolutely. Right. It's the unification of everyone, not the divide. It's unifying us to understand that I have financial issues just like you. I had serious physical injuries just like you. I've lost family members, just like you. Like, I get a lot of taxes taken out of my paycheck, just like you. I have kids, I'm married, I've been through divorce, just like you. It's like you have an individual in front of you who understands, on a day-to-day basis, what it's like to be a citizen of our country. Mm-hmm. And, I'm willing to put myself in a position to fight for, what is best for us, to move forward with legislation. So that, that's my goal.
I love it, brother. Thank you so much for sharing. I think we need more people like you stepping up in the leadership role.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. And I agree. Yeah. So it's a second chapter, and I can't wait to continue to write it and see where we're going to go. But yeah, man, McLendon for 2020 for Congress.
Hell yeah.
And that's just the bottom. Let's see how far we can go with this. That's just the first step. And it's a collective, it's a collective body of work. I'm just the face, right? So it's people like you, it's people like on my team, who will support and vote for me. We're a collective body. I'm just the face. That's all. So, and it's maintaining that thought process and not falling into the trap of what we would consider to be political leaders. Mm-hmm. Just maintaining being humble, putting myself in a position to get my ass kicked every now and then, just to remind me, that I'm not as great as I may think I am. But that's why I have people like you. Yeah, to help me with that.
Hell yeah, man.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate it. Where can people keep up with you, follow the evolution, and just find out what you've got going on?
You can go to my LinkedIn page. Like, that pretty much has a lot of my ideas, a lot of my direction on where I'm going, and it's yeah. And then from there, you'll be able to push to other media outlets in order to see like what I'm doing.
So guys, it's Floyd, Floyd, McLendon, McLendon. Did I get the spelling correct?
Yes, Junior.
Key.
Yes,
Very key.
There's a senior out there, but so make sure it's Floyd McLendon Jr.
Follow him on LinkedIn if you're on LinkedIn. Floyd, thank you so much for your time, man. This has been phenomenal, and I'm so glad to continue staying connected to you.
Michael, thank you, and Brute Strength. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely, man. Have a great day.
Okay.
This episode is finished, but your training journey continues. Head over to brutestrengthtraining.com/SSW and grab your free pack of 32 accessory workouts that you can incorporate into your training and start improving your strength immediately. That's brutestrengthtraining.com/SSW.